Hello, and welcome to Postcards from a Soul and Her Human. I'm the human, Sophia. Thank you for joining me today. If you're new, welcome. If you are a past attendee of these episodes, I appreciate you coming back. I am in a kind of a strange energy today. I'm not going to lie. I wasn't sure I was going to record, but Sundays are really the best day for me to do this. So I decided just to plow through it. I'm having really powerful ascension symptoms today. And I have for the last several weeks, and it's been described to me as preparing me for this next phase and to come into union with my twin flame, going through primarily what's described as a heart chakra ascension or expansion. And it is a wild feeling. These are new symptoms. I've been going through this for more than 4 years. These are new. Yesterday, I had a respite from it because I spent the day with my granddaughter, and she's like medicine. My granddaughter, my daughter are like medicine for me. So when I'm with them, I don't feel generally the ascension symptoms, or when I'm outside, which I try to do as often as I can. But what I was experiencing, or am still experiencing, is really located from shoulder to shoulder across my whole chest. This is the heart chakra. It's being expanded and ascended so I can hold on to the frequency that I have cultivated in this isolation when I go into the world again. So when I have new relationships and connections, and I have a community again, which for anyone who doesn't know, or as a reminder, I've been almost completely isolated for 4 years. I have zero connections. I don't speak to anyone regularly. I don't go anywhere much, except for the things that I enjoy doing, which is primarily being outside. And this is all in preparation for me moving into this next phase that I've talked about at length. But the feeling in my chest is, I mean, it goes from shoulder to shoulder. My whole entire chest is immersed in this feeling of, uh, it feels like sparks in my chest, like a low grade electrical storm going on in my chest, and it can be so intense that my whole chest feels numb. And I just have to take deep breaths. The more time I spend outside, of course, the more I feel grounded. The easier it is for me to anchor these ascension events, so I don't suffer too much because they can be very disruptive. So today I'm feeling very ascendy or asymptomatic, as I put it, because the ascension symptoms are definitely heightened. Um, there's other issues that it causes, or other feelings or sensations, but that's primarily what I'm going through. But I wanted to talk about something really interesting. I've had a couple of really interesting things happen to me over the last week or so that have really put me into a different state of being. And I can't really use state of mind or even state of heart anymore because of the coherence that I've experienced with all of these transformative events that I've gone through over the last 4 years. Is I it's not something that I have to believe in or even know. It's just become like hardwired into my DNA. All that I'm going through, this coherence, it's not, like I said, it's hard to describe. I even thought a little bit, how am I going to describe this? And I just have to trust what comes out is the best I can do. And it's a coherence, it's a harmonization with the frequency that has taken up in my body. And what this has done, especially through this time period, today is September 14th, 2025. The portal that we're in is very powerful since the blood moon eclipse on 9/7, and all the way through till the 21st of the month. There's like a portal that's open now that is really allowing you to purge anything that doesn't serve you anymore out of your body. And this can cause a lot of disruption in your life because you are needing to truly change your life in order to comply with this energetic cycle, in order to keep us evolving. You can choose to stay in what's familiar and suffer through the symptoms and not make any changes, because what's happening for a lot of people is old emotions are coming up, old imprints in the body, old traumas and belief systems, and everything that keeps you in an old version of yourself starts to break apart and come to the surface. And a lot of people are suffering a lot of emotional events. They are crying for no reason. They are angry. They are going through all kinds of things. I'm not experiencing this way because I've already purged the majority of that out of my body through this major transformational stage that I've been in for more than 4 years. However, I keep hearing that people are having these very disruptive events, and that you either have to go through it and face what's coming up and acknowledge it and then let it go, or you keep pushing it back down, you stay stuck in the old version of yourself, and you're missing a huge opportunity, is basically how it's been described. So this is a very crucial time in our history of Earth. It only comes every, I'm not going to get the dates right, but it's not coming for another, I don't even remember. The last time it was here was in the 1800s. So that'll give you an idea, this portal. So it's an important time to really pay attention to your body, pay attention to your thoughts. They might scare you, but if you examine yourself and you really go into the energy that you want to release, what doesn't serve you anymore, you will have these purges. And they happen over and over through this portal, this time period. And once September 21st hits, it closes that portal of release, and it opens a rebirth portal. And I didn't know anything about any of this before my journey into this phase of awakening. Several phases, continued, repeated. But I learned this through messages I receive and through a lot of intuitive work that I do, which is spending time alone and connecting with my own higher self, my soul, through my intuitive channel, receiving a lot of information that way. So this is a very transformative time, not just for me, but for all of us, to recognize what's coming up and to not push it back down, but to reconcile with it. And it requires you to spend time alone. It requires you to really examine yourself and your motives in your life. What is motivating me to keep doing what I'm doing, whether it's a job, a relationship, or a circumstance, or even a location? If you're being challenged to examine that, you have to examine that. And then you're going to be losing connections. You're going to be losing friendships, maybe even a relationship, maybe with your loved ones, or your maybe your spouse, or your friends, or even your family. So there's a lot that's going on. It's a huge opportunity for that. So during this time, I had my own set of purges, and it started about a week ago when I was driving home from the park. And I go to the lake or the river almost every day, unless I'm spending time with my girls. That's pretty much all I do. And I went to the river on this day, and I was driving home, and it's in a valley, and I was out of the valley and up onto a cliff edge, going on around to our little small town that I go through to go home. And I was driving home, just paying attention to the road and not really thinking about anything in particular. And I noticed out of the corner of my eye very quickly a flash, and then I heard a boom under my tire. And I knew that I had just hit a squirrel. I ran over a squirrel or a chipmunk. I couldn't see it. And this is something that was really eye-opening for me, because I have always tried really hard not to injure any other life, whether it's the tiniest little insect or another human being. I mean, that's just not the way I'm wired. When I suffer trauma or pain or even abuse or betrayal, I go inward. I don't lash outward, which is not good for me either, but at least I don't hurt other people. But I ran over this little creature, and I knew immediately what had happened. There was no way to deny it. And I kept driving, and I said out loud to myself, "Oh, this doesn't feel good." And as I kept driving, I realized that it's not really how I felt. And this was a really enlightening moment for me, to learn about something that I have been learning about over the last 4 years, which is detachment. And I've talked about this a lot, maybe not specifically about detachment, but I've talked about how I've detached basically from my old humanity, from my old belief systems and the constructs of the 3D matrix that I lived within, which are particular to me, just as yours are particular to you. And through this education in detachment, which is uh, no classroom teaches this. This is something I learned through my intuitive work and through, of course, the messages in the tarot. And I've learned that I had to detach from who I thought I was, from what I believed about myself, and so on and so on, in order to get to a point where you can shed all of that. You literally shed an old version of yourself and you step into a brand new one. And we do this every day, multiple times a day, but there are what's called quantum leaps in the versions of yourself, and you can bypass 100 or thousands of them if you have a spiritual awakening. And it's designed for that. It allows you to see yourself from a perspective and a vantage point you couldn't before. That's the third eye. And it allows you to identify parts of your life that no longer fit or serve you. And this is what this whole purge is all about. So I've been doing this over the last 4 years and learning about detachment, detaching from expectations of other people. And this was a huge one with my ex-husband, who was a karmic soulmate. I expected that I was safe in that relationship. I was with this person almost 25 years. We had a business together. I assumed that that part of my identity was just wrapped with his, and that as long as he complied with what my desires or my heart wanted, I was always safe. And what I didn't realize was that that safety has to be cultivated within ourselves, through being alone, through accepting ourselves, and then loving ourselves. And then through that self-love, we start to be able to see other people going through the same journey, and we can appreciate them for where they are. And this allowed me to not only accept the situation that I was in, which was betrayal, abuse, and neglect emotionally. Not only could I accept it, but I was actually able to appreciate the dynamic between me and my ex-husband, because it taught me so much. And this is what people come in our lives to do. They teach us what we need to learn. So when you're abused, you have to learn to protect yourself, and you do that from going within. When you are lied to, you have to look at yourself. Why did I accept that lie? What is it about me that needs someone to be who I need them to be so I can feel safe? I mean, this is expressed in choreographed events that we write into our life journey in every day, with all of our connections, relationships, and circumstances, and even locations, like I said. So these opportunities are everywhere always. And but now I can see them very clearly. So not only was I able to appreciate what my ex-husband allowed me to learn through this connection, but I actually was able to thank him. I about a year ago, I called him, and after not seeing him for a long time, and just said, I want to talk to you. And had coffee with him, and I said, listen, you were a karmic soulmate. And he said, oh, that doesn't sound good. I said, it's not, but it's beautiful, because you gave me the most beautiful gift I could have ever gotten from another person, which was my awakening, which allowed me to go inward and to discover who I truly was beyond all of the mechanisms, the soothing mechanisms, the protections, the shields, the masks, everything that you wear throughout your life when you're afraid to look at yourself. And through all those years, I thought I was fine. I had survived sexual abuse, physical abuse, mental abuse from my family, and I just assumed I was okay. I didn't realize that I had taken refuge in this relationship and hoped for the best. So we go through these transactional or relationship interactions in order to figure this stuff out about ourselves, if we're willing to do it. So I learned about detachment. I can't rely on someone else to be who I need them to be, because as soon as I do that, I'm allowing another person to control my joy and happiness, and even my feeling of safety and self-love. So I had to detach from that need, and I had to detach from the people in my life who taught me those lessons, but I no longer needed the lessons. So then I had to detach from that. It really caused me to change my entire physical environment and everyone in it, and not my actual physical location, which is going to change very soon. So I ran over this creature, and I said out loud, oh, that doesn't feel good. But then I realized as I was driving, I said, I really don't feel anything. And the old version of me, and you have to realize that the difference here, the old version of me would have been so horrified that I took a life of a creature accidentally. Mind you, there was no way I could have prevented it. I literally saw out of the corner of my eye something run under my tire, and boom, boom, it was gone. And there was nothing I could have done. If I could have prevented it, I would have. So that's the difference here I want you to realize. So because I knew I couldn't have prevented it, as I was driving, I realized I didn't feel anything. What I did feel, though, was detachment. And I thought to myself, as this understanding, my mental understanding was growing. And again, my body knows this. I'm driving, I run over the squirrel or the chipmunk. I couldn't tell what it was. My mind it instantly says that doesn't feel good. My body is completely relaxed. And so now my mind is catching up with my body. And I realize I don't feel anything. And I'm like, okay, what does this mean? I don't feel anything. I don't feel like doing what I would have done even probably 6 months ago, maybe a year ago, maybe longer, is I would have turned around, gone and looked for this little creature and tried to scrape it off the road and at least bury it, or at least go by and make sure I knew what I did so I could properly penalize myself or properly punish myself for something that I had done, even though it was completely unintentional. And I realized that that little creature ran under my tire at the moment that it did to teach me that lesson, to help me understand how really well detached I have become. Because the old version of me would have needed that little squirrel to still be alive, or maybe it wouldn't be on the road and maybe I didn't hit it. All these feelings about needing to be validated by this little creature. Because if I went back and I saw that creature, I would have cried for 20 minutes, probably the rest of the day, and just felt horrible that I took a life, even though it was completely unintentional. And there's no way I could have avoided it. So I needed that little squirrel, the old version of me, to validate me, to teach me that I'm not a bad person because I could save it or even bury it and go through this like strange attachment to the need that that little creature had to be alive in order for me to feel like I didn't do something horrible. And I thought, wow, okay, I get that I don't feel that way, but I don't feel anything. And I thought, this is really strange. By the time I got home, which was about another 10 minutes, I realized what had happened. That squirrel was a contract. That squirrel was a contract in my life who agreed to run under my tire at that exact moment so I could have this understanding that of how far I have come. And this is how broad and wide your perspective comes when you grow beyond the limitations of your ego and your belief systems and what you need to know or need to believe about yourself in order to keep going, and attaching that need to everyone and everything in your life. Because if this breaks down and I break down, it's not my fault. It's that person's fault. So I could have blamed my ex-husband for the rest of my life, stayed stuck in that low vibration and not grown exponentially. And the word exponentially doesn't even work. I've grown by leaps and bounds, literally quantum leaps and bounds over the last 4 years in my perspective of not only myself, but the world and the universe. So I knew that little squirrel was like, okay, it's time, ran under my tire so I could keep driving. I didn't go back. I didn't shed one tear. I'm like, what is, am I cold? Like, what is this weird feeling of nothingness? It was detachment. I didn't need that squirrel to survive in order for me to feel good about myself. And that really made me realize in a moment how far I had come. Of course, I love that little life. It's a little soul, but I know that it's a little soul. It's probably actually a really big soul who chose to come into this incarnation as an animal to help me learn that lesson in that moment. And what I did, quite honestly, if you're looking from a high perspective, is I sent it home. It wanted to go home. It came here to do what it meant to do. I caused the event that allowed that soul to go back to source and choose what to do next. That's how broad and high the perspective comes when you grow beyond the limitations of your beliefs and your ego and your need. So it taught me in that moment. By the time I got home, I sat in my car and I'm like, oh, shoot, that was amazing. That little squirrel just gave me a confirmation that look how far you've come. It allowed me to really look at myself and say, I'm completely detached from need. And death is like the last landscape to conquer in this detachment. I've not lost anyone in my life recently. Both my parents have passed away, but that's a whole other story. But this experience of detachment had to come from something that I actually cherished, which are animals. Not that I didn't, I don't mean to sound like I didn't cherish my parents. My parents were unfortunately violent and deeply disturbed. And this is where most of the abuse and neglect that I experienced came from. So when they left this earth plane, I was grateful, honestly, for them. I remember when my father passed away, who was a very talented musician. I wrote in the book in the funeral home that heaven's getting another beautiful musician, and I hope he joins some amazing band, maybe with Elvis Presley and I don't know who else, and has a beautiful existence out of his human trauma. So when an animal dies, so that me and animals, I just have this cherished connection with animals. So this would be the test for me to see how I would respond, and it was beautiful. I didn't need for that little creature to still be alive to validate that I'm not a bad person, or that a belief about myself that isn't real. I was able to say thank you for letting me see that, and you're welcome for sending you home, is basically what it was, because I understand the soul is eternal and timeless, and there's the human body is just a container, so we can have this experience through this period of years that we choose to come here. And we choose to leave when we're ready to go, whether we're a child or an infant before birth, or a full-grown adult at whatever stage in our lives. We agree, or we set that time, and we also give ourselves exit points throughout our lifetimes. Look at Dolores Cannon's work. Exit points throughout our lifetimes. If we decide we want to go, we can go. So if you get in an accident that you should have died, but you come out of it okay, that's an exit point that you pre-described into your rewrote. You wrote into your life's journey in case you wanted to leave at that point, in case you felt like, okay, I'm good, I can go. But if you didn't die, your soul decided, no, I'm going to stay a little longer. I'm going to go to the next exit point, and if I don't leave then, I'll stay a little longer. But I chose to stay because I had a very important mission in this lifetime. It wasn't just about my personal evolution. It was about healing my bloodline, generational curses, and this dark entity that's been following my bloodline through God knows how long. And then my second phase of my journey is to help Mother Earth ascend. So I'm not going anywhere until I'm ready to go. And so that little squirrel taught me how far I had come with this lesson of detachment. I didn't need that squirrel to be alive for me to feel good about myself. So that was the first thing. The other thing that happened, and these always happen in a wave. There's no mistakes. There are no accidents. And this is why I call myself an experiential transducer. And maybe no one else on earth uses that as a title, but I developed it because it fits so well with what I'm doing here. Because I can see what's happening. When I look out at my life every day, I can see the choreography. I can see how everything is orchestrated. Nothing is a surprise or isn't known to me. And this is what happens when you get into the higher frequencies and you let go of the masks and the beliefs and the connections, the people, the places, the circumstances, and you allow yourself to truly exist just within your own skin, in your own energy. And then that gives you the laboratory or the surgical room to do the work to recreate yourself, like your Frankenstein moment, where you take all the old parts of yourself off, and then you find that there's a renewed version of you waiting for you that was buried underneath all of that facade. So you go into this laboratory of your isolation, or even just your solitude. It doesn't have to be every day, 24 hours a day. I was on an accelerated path. That's why I was thrown into this 4-year isolation, because of what I came here to do. But being with ourselves and being okay with that is how you know you're going to be okay. If you can't be alone and you need to soothe yourself with toxins or toxic relationships or food, or whatever it is that you escape into, you're hiding from yourself, is basically what you're doing, because you're afraid of what you're going to find. What you don't realize is that the version of you that's buried underneath all that facade, the Frankenstein that you created in your life, is peaceful and beautiful and accepting and loving, and you are in a place that you could never have found externally. You are home. I've been alone for 4 years, more than 4 years, and I've never been lonely. I mean, I take that back. There was a very short period early in my awakening where I'm like, oh my God, there's no one in my life. I even reached out to people who I haven't spoke to in years, fearful that I was going to die alone. Had to go through this period of fear and even dread when you're going through this awakening, because you have to release parts of yourself that are fundamental, that are foundational. It's flippin' scary. I'm not going to lie. It was a 3-day period. I remember it. I called somebody that I hadn't spoken to in years, and I'm like, "Oh, I just want to reconnect, and maybe we can get together." And literally 2 days later, I'm like, "No, no, no, no. I don't want this old connection. This is an old connection from the old version of me." But this is how the ego tries to hold on, because it doesn't want to change, because your ego, your mind doesn't understand what your body and your soul are doing. So you go through this, and it's called ego death because it's really the best way to describe it. You have to let go of all that because it's attached to your beliefs and who you believe you are and who you believe everyone and everything else is. All that has to go. So it's like a death, and you have to die in order to be reborn. So when you look at it from a high vantage point, it's very easy to see the reason why it works this way. So the second thing that happened about detachment was a very big surprise. I have been looking, and I'll briefly recap this. Back in 2020, I got divorced. In 2021, June of 2021, my ex-husband finally left my house. 6 months after our divorce was final, he wouldn't leave. I bought the house from him. We had gone through our splitting of our assets, and everything was done, but he would not leave my house. And I was not in a state of mind or heart. I was so extraordinarily fragile from the trauma that I experienced with him. I couldn't force him to leave. And what happened instead was my soul and my spirit team had to break me down energetically. So I literally couldn't breathe. I had to go to the hospital, and I knew at a soul level that this was happening because I wasn't mentally and physically able to get him out of my house. So I broke down energetically. I was in the hospital, and that's when I finally was able to tell him, enough is enough. You got to go now. And he still didn't leave. I had to go through another little exercise with my sister involved in order for him to actually go, but he did leave finally that day. And that's when my healing began. And when I began my connection with my spirit team through the tarot, which was another serendipitous thing in my life. A friend of mine, or person who worked for me at the time, who was sent to me from my daughter, who is also a soulmate, recommended something that she thought was really interesting. And it was a tarot reader that I ended up viewing shortly after my ex-husband finally moved out, when I was in the depths of my darkest time, trying to get my breath literally so I can start to heal from this 24 plus year relationship that was traumatic. So I started watching the tarot readings very sporadically in the beginning, but after probably about 3 or 4 months, I realized that I was being spoken to directly by my spirit family and my higher self. And I got on board and I started viewing the tarot regularly. First, it was once a month, and then it was once a week, and then it was once a day. And for about a year and a half, a year to year and a half, I viewed the tarot regularly to get to a point where I was able to say out loud, I think I'm good. I got this. I don't need the tarot readings anymore. I don't need the messages anymore. I know you guys are around me, my spirit team. I know that I'm supported. I don't need the constant daily direction, guidance, and validation. So I said out loud, I'm done with the readings. If you're done, if you feel like I'm good, and I let go. And it was a few days later, I went back to the tarot just out of curiosity, and all the messages were gone. Everything was gone. And I knew, actually, I did receive one message in a video that was not a tarot reading that said, if your messages have stopped, it doesn't mean that your guides aren't with you. You've just graduated from needing the daily validation. And I knew, okay, good, I'm good. So a full year went past between the year and a half that I originally viewed the tarot, a full year where I didn't view the tarot at all. And then last September, which was 2024, the messages started again. And when I'm in my YouTube channel, at lunchtime, I would go in there every day and just view mostly comedy clips from Saturday Night Live or the Graham Norton Show or America's Got Talent, things like that. Just something entertaining while I ate my lunch. And then I noticed there was a tarot reading, and I actually, for the first several weeks, I avoided them, and they started to populate, and I'm like, no, 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 I'm not supposed to look at this anymore. I told my spirit team I'm good. But then I realized I was drawn to one in particular, and it basically said that it's a new set of guidance. It's time for us to reconnect with you. So I've been viewing the tarot since last September, and it's now September of 25, so another year. And what happened recently is I I got to the point where I realized that the message is all repeating again. And there are several major themes in my life that I've been made aware of since the very beginning of the Tarot back in 2021, when I finally was away from my ex-husband and they started. The themes have not changed. And you have to understand at this point, and I always under exaggerate because I had to teach myself not to exaggerate through a period of my life. And this is one of the masks that I wore. When you don't feel good about yourself and you have low self-esteem, you exaggerate things to sound like you're more than you are. And that's one thing I had to retrain myself very early on to stop doing. That was way before my awakening. It was something I intuitively knew I had to do. So I can tend to underestimate things. So I feel like there's been over the last year, because I was viewing the tarot, I said in the last episode, up to 6 times a day, but the messages are multiple. I mean, if I had to guess how many messages there are every time I look at my YouTube channel, I can say without overestimating or without, exaggerating, probably every day, 100 or more. I scroll through them. I only look at a handful because I can't take it all in. But most of them are repeating. They're just different ways of saying the same things. So the overarching themes have been very clear to me since the beginning. The biggest one is the relocation, which is coming very soon. And just a really quick side note here. I think I'm in the 9th week. I said almost 9 weeks ago that the angels gave me a time frame of when I'd be moving, and it was 6 weeks. And I said during that episode that I can't hold on to 6 weeks because the time frames when they're given, it means it's just coming soon. It's no longer off in a distance. The orchestration is now finally finding its physical manifestation, because things have to manifest energetically first. That's why our thoughts and our feelings and our emotions are where it starts. When you align with your highest blessings or manifestations, it's because you're aligning with your heart and your mind and your actions. When those 3 things align, you're aligned with your core frequency, which is your soul. And you start to pull in or start to manifest what's meant for you on your highest timelines or your biggest blessings. And for me, I've been aware of what those are. So that was about 9 weeks ago. I received the message that 6 weeks, get ready. And I knew that 6 weeks meant probably 12 weeks because it's never exactly what it is, but I know it means soon. So we're in that 9th week. Well, the end of last week, I viewed a reading that said from the angels, the same young lady, FREYA, who I've talked about before, who channels the angels. She said, this is happening in the next 24 hours. And she said, the relocation, the union with your twin flame, the divine inheritance, and you being seen as a new aged leader for the new earth. And I thought, okay, that's all the themes right there. Those are all the ones that I've learned about, and they're all in this one very short reading. So I said, okay, 24 hours. That means probably the next couple weeks, maybe 4 weeks, maybe a month. There's really no way to know because there are other variables involved. There are other people. I have a twin flame, but I don't know where he is on his journey. And until he's ready to come in, he's not coming in. So I can't, the angels can't necessarily predict that. Although they are a part of what's happening, the orchestration, there's a human being involved. And that human being is likely going through the same heart chakra upgrades that I am, because part of this is to come into union with my twin flame. It is aligning my heart with the energy of my twin. So when we come together, it is a soul recognition. It is like a locking of energy that happens in the physical, but only because the energetic has been completely manifested. So the physical manifestation is the last thing that comes in. It starts in your heart and your mind. And now I'm at an advanced stage where unconditional love is part of my mission. It is how I live my life as a solo person. You have to understand, I'm completely alone here, except for my daughters, who I align with on the same frequency. So when I'm with them, these symptoms actually abate. They actually relax, because when I'm in the presence of somebody who's close to my vibrational frequency, we mesh or we align. So the feelings of disruption are minimized. So when I'm with my girls, I don't feel these ascension symptoms quite so heavily. But when I get back to in my own isolated phase, they just come raging back. So this unconditional love that's being cultivated by the angels and my ancestors and my guides, these are ascension events, and they're basically turning up the volume of my frequency, or turning up the frequency. So if I was on a heavy metal rock band station when I was in my lower vibrations, I have been turned to a light rock channel, or let's say um, rock opera channel, because I love Queen. They're one of my favorites of the rock opera era. And then I went through another phase where I was then turned to a different station, a higher vibrating station, which was light rock. And then I went through another part of my ascension, and I was turned to a classical rock. And then I went into another one, and then I was turned to classical music. And now I'm being tuned to a frequency that human ears can't hear. I'm being tuned to the frequency of the highest frequency, which is unconditional love and authenticity. Authenticity actually vibrates higher than unconditional love. So I need to be my authentic self, and I need to be at this highest vibration of love while I go into this next phase where I'm moved into this new location, which could happen any moment now. 24 hours, could be a week, it could be a month, it could be a year. I've been trained through all of these energetic ascensions to let go or detach from all outcomes. And I've talked about this before. So when I hear 24 hours from the angels, I'm not waiting at the door. I didn't sell my house and sell my car and go, okay, I'm ready. I have to wait for the call. I have to wait for the transmission, or for the connection, or for the person to reach out to me who is instrumental in moving me to this new location. Until that happens, I'm not going anywhere. And so this detachment from the outcome, this detachment has been a really important part of my ascension. Because if I remain attached to outcomes, or to people, or to circumstances, or to locations, then I'm keeping myself in an expectation that things are going to go exactly how I think they're going to go. And when that doesn't happen, then disappointment comes, and, oh, I was wrong. And then you start to doubt yourself, and all that shit happens. Which is something that I'm no longer wired to. And this is when I say I'm untethered from my old humanity. This is what I mean. I'm no longer controlled by my mind, or my ego, or even my heart and my desires. So I have been viewing so I started to say, I was talking about these major themes, which I ended up saying anyway, which is, one is a relocation. The next one is coming into union with my twin flame. These themes have continued to be repeated. Another one is going into an era of abundance where I'll have everything I could dream of. And another one is working with spirit as a transmitter, which is basically what I'm doing now with this podcast and everything that I write. And every time I speak, and the vibration of my body, I'm working with the angels and channeling their wisdom. I'm channeling my ancestors' wisdom. I'm channeling the wisdom of ascended masters, and of the dragons, and of Isis, and Osiris, and Ra, and all of the other ancestors who are part of my past lives, or my memories of lives that I lived before, which actually all exist at the same time. So past is really, again, I won't go into that. But anyways, so these major themes have always been there. And the current messages that I've been receiving since last September, for a year now, are just repeating those now over and over and over. There was a very big section, and this is, I believe, the reason why the Tarot started in last September, was because of my false twin and all I went through with that entity, who actually posed as a spirit guide. I was later, since my last episode, I learned this entity not only manipulated this man who I thought was my twin, who turned out to be a false twin, but he also manipulated me from a soul or a spirit guide level. And this was acknowledged by my other spirit guides. And my question was, how the mother does this happen in the other realms? And of course, there's no clear answer. All I know is that that phase is over. And that was part of that. The new Tarot was really getting me started with that false twin. Since I learned about this, and I did an episode about it called, what was it called? Spiritual Warfare and a False Twin. I think it was the last one I did. I think so, yeah. I've learned many things about my origins as a soul. One is that I may have ancestry with Mother Isis and other Egyptian gods and goddesses and deities. And this makes perfect sense because uh, I've learned very recently too, again, more about my origin than anything else lately, is that I have existence I existed in the Atlantean times, in Atlantis. And I was always confused because the memories that I still have not yet remembered uh, are about my lifetimes in Atlantis, but also ancient Egypt. And what I learned recently, which was very interesting, is that ancient Atlantis and Lemuria were ancient civilizations on Earth during a period of time long before modern humanity. And they fell into, I don't know exactly how it worked, but those civilizations were destroyed. And they were translated, those souls or those civilizations were translated into equaling ancient Egypt. And this is something I didn't know before. So I was always asking, well, I thought this was Atlantis that I wanted to remember, but I keep being drawn back to ancient Egypt. And that's why. So much so that I was drawn to actually purchase this symbol of the Ankh, which I've been avoiding buying or obtaining any symbols because I wasn't sure if it was Atlantis or ancient Egypt, and it was made very clear I was guided to buy this symbol, which is an Egyptian Ankh, which is a tool that I used as an Egyptian uh, person. I had many lifetimes in ancient Egypt, and there is a little small piece of moldavite in it. Which is also known as the alien stone. And it's from a meteor that fell in the Czech Republic, and I don't know how long ago. And I was guided to this symbol and to buying a piece of this stone, which ended up being integrated in the symbol. So this is actually new. I don't wear jewelry at all. I didn't even wear my wedding ring when I was married, but I've been wearing this ever since I purchased it because it's an ancestral symbol and it's meant to help me remember. So that's why I have it. So I'm learning all these new things about myself, but still the core messages are repeating over and over and over and over again. That yes, this is your twin flame and it's this person I spoke about in the last episode. Yes, you're relocating and it's this particular house that I've been guided to and I know exactly where I'm going. And yes, your divine inheritance is coming. Yes, you're going to work with this other person who is also a star seed, not my twin flame. There's another person coming in who I will have a partnership with. And these are the major themes that just repeated over and over every single reading, every day, 6 times a day. So I got to a point, this was just on Thursday, it's today's Sunday of last week, where I opened up the YouTube channel and I saw all the same messages on the thumbnails. I saw my twin flames images everywhere. I saw the angels messages. I saw 2 other tarot readers that I view very frequently, who I've put in the description for anyone who's interested. And they are, I'll say them again. I feel called to say them again, so I will. One is FREYA Ray. She channels the angels, where I get my angel messages, and I am of an angelic origin, so I am very heavily guided and working with the angels. So is my twin flame. And the other one is the connected conduit, which is, her name's Amanda, and I get a lot of messages from my ancestors and the angels and my spirit guides, including the dragons and the gods and goddesses through her. And then there's another one. Her name is SHEA PILA, and I'll connect them again in this episode. She gives me primarily messages from my ancestors and from the dragons in the animal kingdom and Mother Gaia, who I'm also working very closely with, the elements and Mother Gaia. So I see these messages come up, and I had a momentary, like I did after the first year and a half of viewing a tarot. I just said out loud, I think I'm done. I said, I have everything that I need. I know my spiritual gifts are going to be coming on line. I believe after I move into this location that is more aligned with my energetic frequency, where I'll be able to expand spiritually in a way I can't where I am in my old location, in my old timeline, physically still here. This is why the relocation is taking place. And I said, you know what? I see my twin flame. I don't need to look at him anymore. I don't want to peek in on his life because there are many, many readings about our connection. And I haven't looked at them really much at all because I don't need to know what's going on. I know eventually we'll come into union, and that's all I need to know. I don't know where he is in his journey, and I don't want to peer in on him. So I know what I had to go through to make all those disconnections and to follow this spiritual path. It is not easy. I don't want to put pressure on him, even from afar, energetically. So I just kind of said, I'm done with all this. I'm going to stop looking at the tarot. If it's okay, I said to my spirit guides and the angels and my ancestors, I said, I feel good again. I feel like I can let go. And I said, I'm not going to look for a day or two. And so I said, I'm going to just shut it off and I'm just going to, not look again. So a day or two went by and I realized it was yesterday morning I woke up. Was yesterday Saturday? Yeah. So this was Thursday night. Friday, I went all day, didn't look. I wasn't drawn to look at all. Yesterday, Saturday, I spent the day with my granddaughter, which was the most beautiful medicine I could have ever taken. I got to spend the entire day with her while her parents went out for the day. And when I got home last evening and I finally went to bed, uh, I just realized, I said to myself, I think I'm done. I think I completely detached from it. But what I didn't realize until I woke up this was like an epiphany. I said, not only have I detached from the readings, but I've detached from every single thing that I learned. And this was the most liberating moment that I could possibly imagine because I've gone through so many liberations through this transformation. I realized when I woke up in the morning, I said, I'm completely free, not only of the old versions of myself that were stuck in the 3D matrix, but this was what I describe afterwards as a spiritual detox. Because you have to understand, I've been so connected to my spiritual path for 4 years that I've really let everything else go, and appropriately so. So let me get through this thought before you have a feeling about it. Just like letting go of that little creature being alive for me to feel good about myself, I had to let go of the tarot readings and every single message that I was receiving every day that really became my daily newspaper for my future life. I have no life where I am right now. I have no connections. I don't speak to anyone except for my girls. So when I look at the tarot, it's not just receiving messages, it's connecting to my future, because that's where I get all that news or information from about what I'm going to be doing, who I am, who the connections are, where I'm going, and all of that. And I realized when I woke up, I said, I need to let all of it go, every bit of it. And this is how the feeling came to me. And this is maybe it'll make you laugh because it made me laugh too. This in the readings around when I received the 24-hour notice a few days ago, there was another message about the vacuum period. And this is really interesting. When you're going into moving into a new timeline, which is technically a new reality for me, I will not have any old connections. I will not meet anyone like I've ever known before. Everyone I meet in this future world is going to be similar to me energetically or spiritually on their journey. So it's like leaving one train station that was going downtown and going into a new train that is going off planet, basically is what it is. So in order for me to prepare for that, I had to go through, I have to leave everything. So that's why I have no connections here. This old version of me that doesn't vibrate with anything that's here anymore has been transformed in order to go into this new place. So during this 4-year transformation, I was taking on all this new information, taking on all this new energy, integrating and grounding it every day, going outdoors, grounding myself so I can go through these incredible ascension periods without losing my mind. I had to go through all of this transformation. So I basically re-Frankensteining myself for this new world. And what I realized in a moment is that I had to let all of that go. I had to go through what I refer to as a spiritual detox. So when I heard this 24-hour message, there was another one very close to it that said, when you go into this vacuum period, and this happens just before you jump into this new timeline, and it's literally a quantum leap. I'm on a trajectory of my life, if I were to stay here, that is predictable based on what my history is. I'm going into a new trajectory that is completely brand new. It is completely new and is completely separate from my old trajectory, my old life, my old existence. So this message basically said, when you get into this period right before the breakthrough, which I believe I'm at now, everything stops. the synchronicities stop, and they have. I would go outside and see 5, 6, 8, 10 things a day that were showing me this is where you're going. You're on your spiritual path. The last few days, especially the last week, they've slowed down and stopped. I don't see them anymore. And I'm looking around going, okay, I got it. I'm in this period where synchronicities have stopped. And what this is described as is the inhale before the exhale. So when you inhale, you stop, and then you go and you exhale. So I instantly knew intuitively what this meant. It's like the ocean ebbing and flowing. When the ocean ebbs, it has to pull all of its energy back in order to get this new breath of energy to push it all back out and push that water back onto the shore. And that's what this is described as is like a breath. And I'm in the inhale right now. So everything stops. And honestly, my life has stopped as well. I'm not buying anything. I'm not going even places I would normally go. I feel like and this is how it came to me as an image. And there's an album cover that I'm not going to remember the name of the album, and it's going to date me too, but it's England Dan and John Ford Coley, if you are of my era. And the album cover is of them jumping through a portal. And maybe I'll look up the album and I'll post it in the description. I didn't think to do it. But this is how I pictured myself, is mid-jump through a portal. So if I jumped off of a cliff and I'm heading towards a portal, I'm dressed the way that I'm dressed right now. When I hit the portal and let's say my leg and arm come out the other side, I'm in a new clothing because it's a new version of me. So this album cover of England Dan and John Ford Coley's album back in the 70s, I think, is of the two of them jumping through a portal. You can't see the portal, but you can just see their clothes change as they jump through it and on the other side. So that was what I thought of in my mind, or in my third eye, when I had this realization that I am mid-portal right now. So I'm not in my old version of me or the old timeline, and I'm not in the new one quite yet, or the new location, which is the beginning of the new timeline. So I'm in the suspended energy, half my old self, half my new self is how I pictured in my mind. And this is how extraordinary this time is. So I realized something as I had this revelation that I had to let go of even all the spiritual information and everything that I thought. So what I realized in that moment is I have to let go of my twin flame. I have to let go of this new location. I have to let go of all that I'm going to do and who I am. I had to let it all go. And another image popped into my mind of a equally dated reference, which is the movie The Fly with Goldblum. What's his name? Jeff Goldblum, who is awesome. I love him. But he played a scientist who created a teleportation device, and he tested it on himself. And he said very explicitly before he went in that he can't be in there in that chamber with anything else, because the DNA of whatever else was in there would meld with his. And he knew this. And he had tested this a few times with different things. I don't remember the movie that well, although it's a really, really cool old movie, 1986. I did look it up briefly just to see how old the reference was. 1986. Wow. I was just moving from Florida, Fort Lauderdale, where I lived, back to where I live now, to start my life, all that. So anyway, wow. So the movie came into my mind because when he finally tested it on himself, or maybe it was one of the times he tested it on himself, a fly had gotten trapped in the chamber with him. And when he turned on the teleportation device, the particle accelerator moved him to this other device that he was moving from this one to this one. He was teleporting himself. So the particle accelerator mixed his DNA with that of the fly. So when he got to the other chamber, which was in the same room, and he came out of the chamber, now he was half fly, which is so ridiculous. But this is the image that came into my mind, is I can't take anything with me into this portal. And bear with me again. And I have to be completely naked energetically. So I have to let go of all of my ideas, even of this future version of myself. So I knew when I stopped looking at the tarot that I was making a guided decision. I didn't in the moment, of course, because you just do something instinctively, but I knew I was being guided to let it go because I was headed into the portal. this uh, energetic anomaly that opens up and allows you to physically step through it. And that's what's going to happen when I move into this new location. So I knew instinctively to let go of the tarot. And in doing that, I let go of the images of my twin flame. I let go of the image of the home that I feel like I'm moving to. And I just said out loud to myself, none of it matters. This is the ultimate detachment. Not only have I detached from the old version of myself and the needing to be validated by being in this life, being alive, but I've also detached now from the future version of myself because that version is not fully formed. You have to realize that. There are so many variables at play here, and it's all being orchestrated by my ancestors and the angels. And there are so many variables at play that if I hold on to even one of them, and I go through that portal with this idea in my head, it could skew or disrupt or even change what might happen. And I just knew when I woke up, I said, I have to let all of it go. All I know is I'm connected to the soul of my twin. I'm not connected to who he is. And I knew that when I first saw him. I'm like, okay, cool. I see him. He's beautiful. I get it. I got it. When he comes, when he's ready, he'll come. But I'm not attached to the physical manifestation of this person. What I'm connected to is his soul. It's a soul recognition. The same with this gorgeous house that I have a picture of that I look at every night because I'm helping to manifest it. I didn't look at the picture last night. I said, nope, I don't want to see it anymore because maybe it's not that house. Maybe it's a better house. Maybe it's in a better location. I just knew I had to let it all go. And this was the most extraordinarily exquisite, blissful letting go that I could have ever imagined. And I even said out loud to my spirit team, I said, is this what bliss feels like? I have zero attachment to what's coming, zero attachment to who's coming, zero attachment to what I might be doing. And I remember not that long ago, I was worried, oh, what if I don't remember my spiritual gifts and I can't be this healer I'm supposed to be and all these things. And I stressed and worried. And then I finally let that go. And I'm like, okay, wait a minute. I can't ever do that again. I can't allow my mind to run away with me because my mind wants to run to what's familiar, which is doubt and fear and insecurity. And you're not going to be able to do it. So just stop trying. I knew that that was all part of a past version of me. And I was liberated completely from that. And now I am liberated completely from what is coming. And this is such an extraordinary feeling. I can barely describe it. I am living buoyant, and I was buoyant before, but I was full of expectation about what's coming. And I knew instinctively when I was guided, because at first I'm like, oh, I hope nobody's upset with me because I'm not looking at the innumerate amount of messages that are created for me through the angels and my ancestors and spirit guides through these gifted readers. I mean, there's 100 a day. All this effort's been put into speaking to me. Now I'm just refusing to look at it. I'm like, oh, I hope that's okay. But I knew that it was. I knew I was being guided to do it. This was not a choice I was making from my head. This was my soul saying, okay, we got to let this go because we're in this vacuum period. This is so flipping extraordinary. I mean, I was seeing things every day that I am just like, I mean, I'm still seeing some things. I'm not going to lie. The synchronicities have not completely stopped, but they have completely slowed down. And I've accepted that because I received a message that said, this is what's going to happen. So what I was warned about during this vacuum period is losing faith. Okay, I don't see the synchronicities anymore. I don't see the readings or the messages anymore. So those were keeping me connected. You have to understand that. That first year and a half when I finally said I'm good, those readings were what pulled me from the muck of my old version. They literally dragged me out of my old version of myself, and I had something external to trust. This is still external. It's my higher self. It is my spirit guides and the angels, my ancestors, but I'm still looking for that validation through the messages. It's still outside of me. So during that first year and a half when I finally let go of the tarot, I was trusted by my higher self and my spirit team that I was good. And I cultivated this frequency without that daily validation. I did it by trusting my heart and my soul and not trusting my mind. And I got to the point where I was able to flip it. I flipped my thoughts as from being primary to being secondary or even third, because I trusted my energy or my body, how I physically felt first. And then I trusted my heart. And then my mind had to catch up. And I've talked about this many times through the last 3 years of episodes. I think I said I've been doing this podcast for 2 years. It's been 3. Yeah. So I've talked about this many times, how my brain has to catch up. So if I trusted my brain first, I would miss all of this. And this is what we do. We trust our thoughts over our heart and our intuition, and then we're kept off our path. What this isolation was meant for me, and is for anyone else that had to go through an accelerated awakening, is I had to let all that go quickly. And I had to learn through the messages. Yes, you can trust your body. Yes, you can trust your intuition. Yes, you can trust that you're letting go of your job. Yes, you can trust that you're going into your savings. Yes, you can trust that you're going to use your retirement money to get through this phase. That all came to me externally. But it taught me to trust my body, which then began to guide me. So that's why I had to let go of the original tarot. And I went through a 1.5 years where I cultivated this completely through my own intuitive channel and my own faith in my soul and what she's doing here. Then the tarot starts back up a year ago, and I'm taking down this other external belief system that I have this twin flame that never existed and this dark entity, but nothing is for nothing. And this is what you have to understand even in your own life. Your guides are speaking to you always. And what I was brought through was, okay, if I hadn't gone through these messages where I thought I had to go save my twin flame, and I thought that he is going to go through this awakening, and I thought we were going to come into union someday down the line. And in order for me to be supported during that phase, I had to have these other soulmates that were going to come in, that nothing worked out. I had to go through all that in order to defeat this dark entity. I couldn't have done it without knowing it was happening. I had to intend on it happening. And yes, part of it was raising my frequency. And by doing that, this dark entity couldn't reach me anymore. And you have to understand, we are surrounded by darkness, and you may or may not want to hear about it. And that's up to you. You can turn me off or you can skip this part. But we are surrounded by low vibrating darkness. And if we are low vibrating and dark, we attract it. The higher we go in our vibrational frequency, the less they can touch us. And I've had to learn about this, like in a crash course, when I talked about it the last few episodes, that I didn't realize that I was in such danger because I'm an elevated or ascended person. I'm spiritually attacked constantly, and I'm very well protected by my guides and the angels because I have this incredibly important mission. But as regular humans that don't have an army of protection, we have to do this on our own. We are protected by our guides and our higher self. I'm not saying you're not protected. You are, but you have to engage with that with intention. Otherwise, you continue to spiral downward. This is why our intuitions have to be connected to, and why it's so important as that first step into getting back into your sovereignty as a human with a soul who is not open to the advances or the what's the word? The inspiration of darkness around us, because we're influenced by dark forces when we're in our darkness. And when we stay in that darkness, more and more dark influences have control over us. That's how this works. So when you're in a depressive state, or when you're angry or bitter and lashing out all the time, you're cracking open your protection and you're allowing these dark energies in. And as you can see with many of our world leaders who are consumed by dark energy, it results in dark actions and in threatening and hurting other people in the world. So as you rise in your frequency, they are less and less able to influence you until the point comes where they can't influence you anymore at all. And I said this probably about a year ago in one of my episodes. This was right around when the tarot started again last September, where I received a message that my demons have left me because there's nothing left for them to hold on to. They can't influence me anymore, so they all left. They went somewhere else where they can influence somebody easier. This is how this works. So the higher I go in my vibrational frequency, the less open to the influence of dark forces I'm open to. I still practice spiritual hygiene, which I didn't know anything about before this, but I cleanse my energy at the end of the night. I say an incantation or an intention that I'm not going to be bothered in when I go into the lower astral realms when I sleep. I'll post that little saying if you're interested in it, and it's protecting yourself from dark energies that still might have access to you. So I follow a very, very particular spiritual hygiene practice now where I never thought about it before. Because I'm no longer able to be affected by this dark entity that has been following my lineage, not just me, my lineage through a millennia, I had to be made aware of that. I can call it a demon. It's a dark energy. How about that? I had to be made aware of it. This dark energy manipulated people in my life, people who were close to me, in trying to keep my energy low, my doubt and my fear and my insecurity in full blast on the radio. And I suffered with this most of my life. But I realized what was happening through the tarot. I was able to do and I didn't realize it at the time, but I talked about this in the last episode, how I sat down in a meditative state with my big crystal and my lapis lazuli necklace and my shaman stones, and I declared that this dark entity has no power and that I reject it and I send it back to source to reconfigure as high vibrating energy and come back to help me. I was half joking when I did that, but what I did was I set an intention, and I have that power. I am a co-creator. I am a master manifester at this frequency. So what I flip and say goes. And what I didn't realize when I intuitively did that, when I had that ceremonial exorcism of this dark entity in my lifetime, what I had done and was I don't think I mentioned this really before, but what happened is there was a slew of messages the next day and throughout the next several days, up to a couple of weeks, I think it was a couple of weeks ago at this point, saying that I exorcised this demon out of our lineage. That because I used my intention and I refused to be affected by the energy of this dark thing, that I literally exorcised it not only from my life, but from my bloodline. And when you understand that all these lifetimes are happening concurrently or at the same time, there are no past lives. I didn't live any past lives. They're all going on at the same time. So when I heal something in myself, and this is how it was explained by my ancestors when I healed our generational trauma or the generational wounds that no one else could heal. This is why I was called a generational curse breaker. This is what I came here to do. Many of us came here to do this. I didn't incarnate just for my own evolution. I did that already. I incarnated to heal generational trauma and break generational to break generational chains. That has been celebrated already by my ancestry. I've already gotten the green light that that's done, and that's why I'm moving into an era where I will be massively abundant, because that's part of my reward, is from my ancestors as a gift for healing generational trauma and wounds and beliefs that no one else could. That's done. But this dark entity has still been terrorizing our bloodline for a millennia. So by learning about it through the tarot, which is, I believed, why that they started again back in September of last year, I was guided into this twin flame disaster, this false twin flame. But what ended up happening at the end of it was I exclaimed as a sovereign divine being that that entity has no power over me anymore, thereby exorcising it from any influence it could ever have on me ever again. And I didn't realize what I was doing at the same time was exorcising that dark entity from our bloodline, past and future. Anyone else born into my bloodline will never deal with that again. Anyone else born into my bloodline, past or future, neither exist, will not have to deal with a disconnection from their intuitive channel or their higher self. They won't have to deal with insecurities. They won't have to deal with victimhood. They won't have to deal with any of the trauma that I had to overcome, because I didn't just do it for me. I did it for my ancestry. And these are the Pleiadians. And this was made very clear to me. And I get emotional when I think about this because oh my gosh, this is wild. Something I learned recently was that the Pleiadians, and I learned this from a specific tarot deck that a tarot reader was using. It was about the Pleiadians. And when this card came up, it basically said that I was healing my ancestry, the same thing I learned before, but that the Pleiadian race, who are my ancestors, there are other star lineages too, but primarily the Pleiadians, is they unintentionally cause the destruction of a planet. And they carry the guilt and the grief from unintentionally. You have to understand, this is a benevolent race. Another thing that we did that I learned about early on, and I spoke about this early on, I wrote about it in the article on my website called Resurrection of the Goddess, that we are master geneticists. The Pleiadians are. There are different sectors or factions of Pleiadians that have certain gifts. I'm one of the factions. My gift is terraforming, where I create new worlds. This is what my faction of Pleiadians did. And when we moved from planet Maya, which is who I named myself after, we had to leave there due to warring over the I can't remember the star system. In that area of the universe, we had to basically leave that planet, and we found the Pleiades, which is the Seven Sisters. It's a cluster of 7 stars, and we relocated there as refugees, and we had to build living places. So as a terraformer, I built the biology of the planet. Basically, my faction of Pleiadians, we created the oceans and the waterways and the trees and everything natural. And this is why I believe I have such a strong connection to Mother Gaia, and why part of my soul mission is to work with her while I'm here. But we're also master geneticists. And from what I understand, through what I've learned, through the books I have read, and through the messages that I've received, is that we are also responsible for capping the human genome with the Anunnaki, who came into a new Earth. And you have to understand, Earth is not new. Earth is billions of years old. Humanity is not the only species who's lived here. There have been many, many ancient civilizations here. One of them is Atlantis, one's Lemuria, who existed at the same time, and another is ancient Egypt, and there are many others, the giants. There's so many, but we're all alien, because when the Anunnaki came here and changed the native human, who I have come to understand recently is actually the Sasquatch, the caveman, whatever. But when they changed the human genome to make them more like them, they mixed their DNA, the Anunnaki DNA, with the human DNA. So all of us have Anunnaki in us, because we're part of the modern human, who is, 10,000 years old. I don't know exactly what the age is. We know from the Neanderthal that's when our era began. But the Pleiadians were part of that human genome tinkering. So there's a lot of guilt and grief that my ancestry carries because of these mistakes that we made in the past. And they're all benevolent and benevolently intended. None of it was ever meant to harm. But this is what happened. So by healing my bloodline, I am healing that grief and trauma and guilt and shame across my ancestry. And this dark entity was something that was plaguing or terrorizing our lineage, and it has now been basically exorcised, is how I came to understand it. So my ancestors are celebrating, and they're whatever they do in the spiritual realm to toast champagne, I don't know. But this is what I understand that I have accomplished here, and this is no small feat. So I take this very seriously. But anyway, all that being done, all of that being said, and I know there was another point that I may be missing. Forgive me if I don't go back to it. But this phase that I'm in now, in this vacuum that I'm in now, where I see myself mid-portal, suspended in time space, basically, I had to let everything go, including everyone and everything that I thought was coming. And at first, this was a little scary, and I'm going to wrap this up because I know this is going long. This was a little scary. The day after, and I think I actually said that incorrectly. Friday morning, I had this epiphany. Yesterday, I spent the day with my granddaughter, which was Saturday. So I had a day to integrate this. But when I let go of the tarot Thursday night, when I woke up Friday morning, or actually it was in the evening on Friday, I don't know exactly. It all blends together. Forgive me. I had a moment of fear where I'm like, oh my gosh, what if there is no twin flame? What if there is no new location? What if all these things? And I sat with that. I wasn't afraid of it, because you have to remember, when you're going through change, especially this portal that we're in, this 2-week period between the eclipse and the September 21st, when this portal closes, if you ignore how you're feeling or what your thoughts are, you are pushing it back down. So I knew I had to, whatever this was, I had to sit with it. And I did. I sat for a few moments, and I thought, I had to really just feel in my body, what am I feeling? What is this? And it was gone. It was just gone. And what took its place, and this is, again, we are human innately. I don't want to be just a divine being in a human form. I want the whole experience. Part of my mission as an experiential transducer, I don't know why I do this. No, it doesn't mean anything in this context. But that's why I referred myself as an experiential transducer, because I want to feel everything. I want to experience all of it. So the good and the bad, remember the polarity, we're not just light or dark, we're everything in between. It's a scale. So when I slide down the scale into the darkness, I know I can get myself back. I don't fear going there anymore. This is why I'm referred to as a shapeshifter by my ancestors, because I don't just graduate from the darkness and live in the light. I go back in there whenever I need to figure something out. And this is what I'm meant to help people figure out too, as part of what I'm going to be doing. So it's really interesting to go back and realize that I can always come back when I want to. And what I said out loud to my spirit team when I exorcised, do it again, the quotation marks, when I exorcised this dark entity from our bloodline, is I said, I feel like a spiritual badass, because I got angry. I was streaming tears. I was swearing up a storm. I was flipping mad. I'm like, get the f out of here. You're not welcome here. You have no purpose here. You can't affect me anymore. I'm protected. Loser, get lost. I was crying, and when I came out of that, I said to my spirit guides and the angels who are my friends, I said, I feel like this angel just sprouted a buttload of black feathers. And it really felt good to know that I could traverse this line between dark and light. I don't have to just graduate from the light. I can go back whenever I need to get something, or to remember something, or to learn something. I don't have to fear my own darkness anymore. And it's a really beautiful place to exist. And of course, this was validated over and over. But ultimately, this was the ultimate lesson in detachment, is that not only do I not have to attach to any old ideal of myself, or even ideal of my life as a living being, what that squirrel made me realize, or chipmunk, I don't know what it was, is that attachment to life itself is not there. It's been gone a long time. I know I'm an eternal being. So when I decide to leave this form, and I will decide one day, I don't know when it is, I know that I'm leaving behind an experience, an evolutionary phase of my soul's existence. I'm not losing anything, because this is not who I am. And this is why I said in the last episode, I'm not human. And I didn't mean that in a disrespectful, disrespecting my humanity. All I mean is I have it placed into very comfortable context with who I am and what I'm doing here. But it doesn't mean I don't want to experience it. I absolutely do. I cannot wait to experience this new location and all the new connections and everything I'm going to be doing in my work, which is going to start to expand. My visibility as a contributor of information is going to expand. I'm going to become a well-known person. And true love, I've never experienced true love before. So when my twin flame is ready, and whenever he is, he'll come in. He already has my invitation. I gave him that in the last episode, if you listen to it. I am already connected to him. I don't know if he listens to my work or not. I don't really know that. But if he knows who I am, he probably does, just like I know who he is. I'm ready for this connection whenever he's ready. I'm going through this heart chakra, advanced heart chakra ascension, which I have been going through since the end of July. I've been going through what's described as waves of ascension. They just keep coming and coming and coming. And today is a particularly asymmetrical day, asymptomatic day, which you can tell. I'm not on my game completely. I feel very jittery and my chest feels extraordinarily numb right now. And this is all part of me moving into this new phase and getting ready for this divine union. But I can't wait to experience true love. I've never experienced love before. And this is all part of my design. Every partner I've ever had has been designed to help me grow into this phase of my journey. I've never had a loving connection with someone who I felt safe with. Even though I had to learn my karmic lessons, which is why I invited these particular relationships into my life. But I've never, because of all the lessons I had to learn to get to this elevated or ascended state, to go into this new phase of this new trajectory of my life, this new timeline, I never got to experience love either. I get to do that in this new reality. So I want to experience every moment of it. I don't have any fear of loss at all. So, one of the lessons is, well, what if because a lot of people have soulmate journeys where they meet somebody, they fall deeply in love, but they're meant to separate because you have to keep learning. This twin flame is supposed to be my forever love, but I don't hold on to that. I don't hold on to anything. I don't hold on to who he is. I don't hold on to how long we're together. I just want the experience. And this is the experiential transducer in me. This is the alien technician in me who wants to just observe myself as the human counterpart having the experience. This is what I came here for. I'm the boots on the ground for my soul, my higher self, to have these sets of experiences so she can grow. I'm her human counterpart. I'm doing and seeing and feeling and experiencing everything for her. That's how this works. So because I see myself as a vessel or a channel or a counterpart to my soul, I'm not attached to this humanity in any way, shape, or form. I could die right now on camera and I would die happy. I know if I leave my girls, they're eternal beings. They know that. We've had long conversations about this with my daughter. She knows that she's an eternal being. So if I move away, which I'm going to be doing soon, and I said 3,000 miles away, it's actually 48,000 miles away. I'm sorry, 4,800 miles away. It's not 3,000. It's 4,800 miles away that I have to move away from my girls. But she knows because she said, Mom, I understand what you're doing. You're on a soul journey and a mission. So am I. She's okay with me leaving. She understands it's part of our soul mission together is to diverge into these solo missions. So if something were to happen to me, she knows that I'm not gone. I'm always going to be with her. This is what I'm talking about. This is the ability to detach from my humanity to a level where I can actually enjoy every moment of it without fear of loss. And that's why that little squirrel or chipmunk leaving by my hand, technically my tire, I wasn't attached or I didn't need for that squirrel or chipmunk to survive in order for me to feel good about myself or to feel that I did something wrong. I didn't do anything wrong. There's no way I could have avoided it. Now, if I saw it coming and I purposely ran over it, I'm a bad person. I didn't do that. That was done in such a way where I couldn't avoid it. Because if I could have avoided it, I would have gone down a different path. What I was validated by this beautiful little soul, or possibly very big soul, maybe it was even me in another incarnation, who knows, ran under my tire to teach me before I go into this new phase of my life where I have to detach from everything, that I'm literally detached at a level where I can actually do this now. I have to believe it. I hold all the power as a sovereign being. Free will is everything in this earth zone. You have to understand, only influence is allowed. So dark entities can influence you, but they can't change your will. But their influence can be powerful enough where your will aligns with theirs. Just like me, as a sovereign being, I can align my will with my spirit guides and my higher self and with the angels and everyone else. But it's up to me to believe and to really follow through with that. Otherwise, I can't go through this portal. This is why, and this is really the whole purpose for this episode, for this lifetime, is we can't do it unless we intend to do it. We can't heal, other people can't heal us. We can only heal ourselves. Other people can't love us. We can only love ourselves. Other people can't fix us. We can only fix ourselves. And when we finally realize that, and then we uncover this extraordinary, vast, endless source of power that we possess as divine beings in a human form, once we access that, we rise above all the need. Once we rise above the need, we develop this extraordinary appreciation for life. And then we begin to detach from all that it means to us because it's a temporary state of being. It is a means to an end. It is a tool in our tool belt. I am a human counterpart to my soul, so I can have this experience on her behalf. And by doing this, I was able to heal my lineage and get rid of a dark entity. And now I'm moving into a phase where I can just lay back and enjoy it. No more lessons, no more darkness, no more entities, no more fighting demons, with my spiritual sword. I can put that in the sheath now, and I can go into this new existence, this new reality, completely sovereign. Not just sovereign from my darkness, but sovereign from all this human experience means. Because it's done. I get to use this vessel now to laugh and let my inner child live this life as me. And this is something interesting, and I'll close with this, is I didn't realize 3 years ago when I created Postcards from a Soul and Her Human, what I was doing. I chose a MP4 little video that I bought 2 years earlier to use in an advertisement for my estate liquidation company that I had at the time. It was a little video of a little girl sitting on a suitcase with her toy airplane, and she's wearing an aviator's cap and glasses, and she is playing with a wooden airplane sitting on top of a suitcase. I bought that 2 years and I never used it in the advertising. And I serendipitously came across it in my one of my online files on my hard drive. And I instantaneously knew that she was the face of Postcards from a Soul and Her Human. And this is so beautiful because it was intuitively, I knew this after a period of time, that she is me. That little girl. She's a little blonde, brown-eyed girl, which I was a blonde. I was platinum when I was a child, and I had dark brown eyes. I don't have brown eyes anymore, but she's me. And I didn't realize what I was doing was putting myself at the masthead of all of this work that I was creating as this transforming being. That little girl with the aviator's cap sitting on a suitcase is living this life for me. This is my re-engagement with my inner child, is what it is. This is what this whole thing has been about, is I was able to not only go back and get my inner child and bring her into my adult life, but I have merged with her now. And this little girl who I put at the masthead of this creation of all my work, everything I write and everything that I speak about, which is this podcast, I didn't realize that that's what I was doing. I was putting my own inner child at the masthead. She's at the forefront of everything that I've created. And it's interesting because I just launched a new website just last week. And the very first website I had, if you're familiar with it, started out as just a journal. I didn't know anybody would ever see anything that I was doing. Honestly, there's not many people that still see it now. But I was guided to very recently to upgrade my website into a place where it reflected the new version of me. So I just launched a new website, and during the building of it, I didn't think I was going to be able to keep the MP4, which is my banner. And in a moment, I said, you know what? If the person who helps me do this build says, you know what, it might be personal to you, but it's not good for your viewers, I wouldn't keep it. I probably would have let it go. Although she's still my logo, she's still on everything that I do. This MP4 video that's on the masthead of the banner of my website, I thought I had to let go. And I worked with a young lady right from the very beginning. And I said, I'm not sure about the MP4. Do you think it's okay for me to keep it? And she's like, well, let me see if I can make it work, because it didn't translate to the mobile version. It would just look like a blurry picture. And she said, you know what? I have to tell you, I really like it. And I said, okay, she's staying. I knew it. I knew she was going to stay, but I just wanted to make sure I wasn't holding on to her, and it wasn't translating to other people. And I just got to the point where I realized if I'm guided to keep it, I'll keep it. And I was. So now she's still at the head of my new website, proud as ever, playing with her little toy airplane on a suitcase, a red suitcase, which talks about travel and movement, transformation, which is exactly what I've been going through, and ultimately what I'll be moving physically very soon. But yeah, I wanted to end on that note. So I think I'll call this episode Detachment and a Spiritual Detox, because this is really what this experience in the last week or so has taught me about detaching from everything, even the most beautiful elements of my future that I haven't experienced yet. Because my guides are telling me it may be completely different than you expect, but trust me, you're going to love it. And that's the message that I took from this. And I'm hanging in mid stasis, mid time space in between these two portals. And I cannot wait to jump all the way through. And, maybe next time we connect, I'll be there. I don't know. Maybe something else amazing will happen and I'll talk to you before I go. But for now, I'm going to say goodbye. And I appreciate, again, as always, you being here with me, especially if you stayed to the end. And these can be long. But I will talk to you again very soon. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.